This is Nazino Island. It measures exactly 3 kilometers long, and it is also not a bureaucratic mistake. And this was not a logistical failure. These were real machine guns aimed at starving citizens. And this was a real intentional experiment in human deprivation. This is a suppressed historical event, unlike anything you've ever been taught. The knowledge originates in the frozen arteries of the Ob River, Western Siberia. 1933, the architects were Genrik Yagoda, head of the Soviet secret police, and Matvei Berman, head of the Gulag system. Together, they drafted a massive social system, a sweeping protocol to cleanse cities of undesirable elements. The system extracts human beings from urban centers. It transports them thousands of miles away. It deposits them into a closed, inescapable environment. By May, 6,000 people stood on Nazino Island. They were not hardened criminals. They were people caught without internal passports, students, street sweepers, blind men, women waiting for trains. The system operated in pure, absolute isolation. It survived for less than a month. Textbooks offer a sanitized official narrative. They claim this was a resettlement program gone wrong, a bureaucratic failure or a tragic oversight caused by bad weather and poor logistical planning. But here's where the official record shatters. The state narrative crumbles against one glaring physical fact. Guards ring the island with machine guns. They did not build a single wooden shelter. They did not distribute basic survival tools. They only delivered raw, unbaked rye flour. When starving people waded into the freezing river to escape, the guards opened fire. You did not shoot people you were trying to resettle. This was not a primitive mistake. It was elegant biological engineering, a perfect sealed vacuum designed to test the absolute limits of human deprivation. The state wanted to know how fast society would consume itself. The answer was waiting in the mud. The mechanics of this collapse followed a strict, brutal logic. Isolation breeds panic. Panic accelerates starvation. Starvation destroys morality. Destroyed morality creates predators. The documented proof did not come from an enemy of the state. It came from within the machine. A loyal communist instructor named Vasily Velechko began his investigation in July of 1933. He expected to find a working settlement. When he finally reached the island in August, the survivors had already been evacuated. What he found instead was grass grown head high and skeletons. He was horrified. He wrote a detailed, highly classified report. He sent it directly to the Kremlin. The party stamped his report top secret. They expelled Velichko from the party. They handed out minor sentences to low-level guards. And the report sat locked in an archive in Novosibirsk for 60 years. The truth sat in darkness until 1994. But the timeline cascade remains on paper. Week 1. Barges dumped nearly 5,000 people onto the ice-covered mud. There were no axes, no tents, no cooking pots. The guards dumped 20 tons of raw rye flour onto the shore. Starving people ran to the piles. They scooped flour into their hats. They stuffed it into their pockets. They had no fire. They mixed river water with raw flour. They ate the wet paste. Dysentery began immediately. Week 2, another 1,200 people arrived. The temperature dropped below freezing. Hundreds died of exposure in their sleep. But here is where it gets worse. The compound benefit stack of state terror became clear. Engineered deprivation strips identity. Stripped identity removes resistance. Removed resistance allows total state control over the survivors. Then, the ultimate human taboo broke. Within the first 2 weeks, murder became a calculated survival strategy. Gangs formed in the brush. They hunted the weak. They did not kill out of anger. They killed for calories. The island measured exactly 3 kilometers long, 600 meters wide. The cost of maintaining the prisoners was 0 rubles. The daily caloric intake was 0. The yield was 4,000 corpses in 13 weeks. Guards watched from the opposite bank. They traded small amounts of tobacco for gold teeth extracted from the dead. The system worked exactly as designed. Velichko's research proved a terrifying reality. Civilization is a fragile illusion. It is maintained entirely by a functioning supply chain. When you sever the chain, the monster wakes up. The island was cleared by June. 4,000 people were dead or completely missing. The state conducted a quiet, internal investigation. They blamed low level guards. They handed out minor prison sentences. But look at the institutional silence. Look at the architecture of the event. No shelters were ever planned. No medical supplies were ever shipped. No rescue operations were ever authorized. Because the cruelty was the core function of the protocol. Who profits from this level of deep ignorance? Any authority that demands absolute reliance. If you believe the state will always feed you, you will never learn to feed yourself. The moral mathematics are entirely cold. The cost of a rifle bullet is a few kopecks. The cost of dumping a human on an island to starve is zero. But here's where the pattern affects you today. The real world obstacle is the modern belief that this cannot happen again. The assumption that modern logistics are bulletproof. The specific solution is radical self reliance. You must build your own systems before the official ones fail. Today, Nazino Island is overgrown with tall grass. The Soviet archives tried to erase it from history. The local villagers still call it Death Island. The official state memory remains completely blank. 10 years from now, the supply chains you trust might fracture. The unprepared will wait for instructions. They will wait for the barges to bring flour. The prepared will already be gone. Imagine the smell of wet rye flour mixing with freezing river mud. That is the scent of a broken promise. Sovereignty, not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing exactly what humans are capable of in the dark. 6,000. That is the only number you need to remember. Do not wait for the state to build your shelter.